Hello, in this video we will cover how to work with dates in Microsoft Excel. This is the fourth and last video of Module 2 in our Excel tutorial. Um, this spreadsheet we have here, the first question, the first problem is if you have a spreadsheet with hundreds of different dates, how do we extract from those dates the month, the year, the date, and even the different weeks or days, differences between number of days, difference between the two start and end dates, that sort of thing. How do we do those kinds of calculations? Well, oftentimes we will get data where people enter dates differently and the dates are formatted in different ways, and we need to fix that. Kind of similar in the way that last week or last module we were fixing all the different textual variations in that spreadsheet. So we're going to correct or validate, error check, whatever you want to call it, the date formats in this spreadsheet. So we have a list of dates here. They're formatted differently. And we can pull the year out of each of these dates, even though they're formatted differently. So we'll start with the year. And I've just written in the names of the functions just to remind myself, because there's a little bit to remember here in this lesson. So equals year, parenthesis, and all we have to do is just select the cell with the date in it and close the parenthesis, and it will give us the year by itself. So the year 2003. We'll pull this down, and we have the year for each one of these dates. Now this is the same date, just formatted three different ways. You can see it's also the same date as this one. So these are all four actually the same date, just formatted in different ways. We can see it pulled the year out of them regardless of how they're formatted. Because really, Excel isn't storing the format. Excel is storing a serial number for that date and just giving it to you in different formats based on your preference. The month, same way, equals month, parentheses, select the same cell, close parentheses, and this is the first month, second month, right? Day works exactly the same, very simple. It's the fourth day. So we know by looking at this that it's basically the month is, the year is 2003, the month is January, and the day is 4. Now, the day of the week. Let's say we want to return, what is the day of the week of January 4th in 2003? We want Excel to tell us what day of the week that is. So we can use the weekday function equals weekday, and it gives us the syntax here for this, and we'll say the date again, and the return type. It just gives us different options. This is optional if we want to specify a particular format for the week. I think we can just leave this off. And this says it's the 7th day of the week. Right? Because it tells us that we know that the 4th day is actually the 7th day of that week. January 4th is the 7th day of that week in 2003. So that means that it's a Sunday, or no, Saturday, right? It means it's a Saturday. Sunday is the first day of the week. If you're following, the Western standard, but you can change that. So how can we put a date together? Let's say we have a date this way, year, month, and day, and we need to put it together, right? This can be the opposite of the problem of breaking it apart. So we can put it back together. So equals date, and we can say this is the year, this is the month, separated by commas, and this is the day, and it puts it back together for us. Pull that down. Right, we get the date that we started with. Now we can highlight this date, and if we go up here just on the ribbon, we can select date, long date, for example, and it will change the date format. Pretty long, right? If we go to the bottom here, we select more numbers and formats, and under dates, we have a number of different predefined templates that we can pick from. Maybe we like this one with the short month abbreviation. Great thing about Excel is if we don't see the one that we want, we can create our own custom. Right here in custom, we can create our own custom date if we want to. Set up our own template, our own syntax for that date. So we can also set the format across a range of cells. Change it to short date. Right? So we could do all the cells at one time within a range as well. Format however we like, however we want it to look. Now, I mentioned that Excel is actually saving date information as a serial number. Kind of like text has ASCII characters, but each text has its own serial number. So Excel has the same kind of serial number system for dates, except the serial number changes every year because the serial number is based on the number of days between the date and the current date, right? So if we use this formula equals date value, and we select this number, or the cell, hit enter, we get the serial number. Pull that down, right? So this date is actually 37,625 days from the start point for Excel because time moves forward, so they have to keep adding more numbers. All they do is every year they just add one for every year. This is date back in 1901 is only 398 days from the 0 point they use. Which might be, the 0 point might be 1900, maybe January 1st, 1900, I don't remember. So we can format, Excel knows these are dates, even though they don't look like dates. It recognizes those as dates. So if I just use a simple formula and equal that number, right? And then format that serial number as a date, look at that. It converts the number to a date. So we can go back and forth, number to date, date to number, and I can give this any format I want. If I want to just quickly turn it back to a serial number, I just have to format it as general. You see this is a date, right? I can go up here and format this as general, and it turns it into the serial number. So we don't actually need to use this date value formula. We can just change the format of the cell to get the same result. We can use the formula EDate to specify to ask or request for the date, at a later time in months. So EDate, and we put in the start date, and then the number of months later. So like 10 months later, it will give us the new serial number. And if we format it as a date, that's a date that is 10 months later than the start date. 2 months later, right? I can pull this down. That's nice, right? So we can know exactly what date is a certain number of days or months or years ahead of time if we want to. It's a way of sort of adding time to dates. So here's another question from Winston's text. How do I determine a date that is 50 workdays after another date? What if I want to exclude the holidays? So workdays is different from days, right? Workdays is in the Western system is Monday through Friday. But in other countries, it could be different. Some countries have 4-day workdays. Some workdays may start on a Sunday, like in the Middle East. So, but for this particular formula, it's based on the idea that workdays are Monday through Friday. And we don't want to know the total number of days between the two dates, but just the number of work days. It's easy to get the total number of days between days. I just have to type equals start date minus the end date, and it will tell me how many days are between two dates, right? That was a negative because I should have done it the other way around. I'll do it right. This is the later date minus the start date. The 944 days difference between these two dates, between the start date and the final date. But this is total days. We want just work days. So we could use the workday function to calculate that. The start date is here, right? And oh, this column is asking us for the work days from the start date. So we want to know the date that's 50 work days from the start date. Not just 50 days from the start date, but 50 work days from the start date. So we need to put the number of days, right? And on this first example, it will count all the days. So it will tell us that 50 days from this start date is going to be March 14th, 2003. Now, if we want to exclude holidays, if we know there's a holiday during that time, like, I don't know, Halloween or something like that. So we can use this formula workdays again. Same formula, workday. And then the start date is here. Number of days, again, 50. But this time we're going to add the optional criteria, the optional parameter, and put in the range for the holiday and close the parenthesis. And so 50 days from this date, excluding the holiday, would be the 17th instead of the 14th. Right? We can repeat this again if we want to. All I have to do really is just drag down the formula, just a different date, and adjust it for us. Drag it down. All right. It's the same because this holiday is in 2003 and this is a 2005 date, so this holiday doesn't occur within this range. All right. So next function is net work days, or the work days between, right, between two dates, right? In this example, we want to know the number of days, specified number of days after a particular start date. But here we're going to calculate the number of days between two dates, which I showed you earlier. You can just do the simple math just by adding and subtracting. You can get this all the days, right? But we're not looking at all the days. We're looking at the work days. So we want to exclude the weekends. All right. So net work days, right? The net work days between the start date and the end date. And the third parameter for holidays we'll just leave off, just like in the earlier example. We get 675 between these 2 days. There's 675 work days based on the Western system of a Monday through Friday work week. This time we want to exclude the holidays, right? So it's the same formula. Actually, this one is according to the spreadsheet, this is supposed to be the no holidays one. I'm selecting the wrong rows here, sorry. One column over. All right, this row here, excluding holidays, I'm supposed to include the holidays in this one. So we'll add that third parameter of this holiday range in 2003, and it's 2 days difference. Total number of work days between these two dates, excluding the holidays, 673, not excluding the holidays, 675. So we can also calculate the number of days, months, or years between dates. So let's say we want to know, we just figured out how many days are between this, between these 2 days. But we could also use, this formula to get the same thing, the total days, not just work days, but the total days, right? 944, like I did earlier with the simple formula of subtracting the two dates from each other. But let's say we want to get the number of years or number of months between the 2 days, not just the number of days. So we can ask Excel, drag this down. And the formula is, actually, I don't want to drag that down. Or do I? Before I drag it down, I want to put in this number signs or the dollar signs so that my cell locations don't change as I fill in, right? So the first one is date if, and it is the first day, second day, just like we did with the workdays formula. But it has this third parameter here, which is in quotation marks D, which specifies days. If I change the D to M for months, the dateIf function gives me 31 months. So there's 31 months between these two dates. And then if I change it to Y for years, it says there's 2 years between these two dates. So it's 2 years or 31 months or 944 days between these two dates. For dates, there's just one quick thing I just want to show you, which is how to get today's date on the spreadsheet that is a dynamic value. You just type in today. Like this, and you'll get today's date. It's helpful sometimes to put on a spreadsheet so that you can track which date data has been entered. You can record that. That's today's date. Also mentioned that Workday International is a way of changing these formulas about workdays and what was the other formula called? Workdays and net workdays. There is an international option, meaning that if you are trying to calculate workdays for a different kind of week, let's say a 4-day work week like in Europe, or maybe a work week that starts on Sunday like in the Middle East instead of Monday, there is that function there. If you need that, you can look that up. It's in the chapter, but I'm not gonna go over it. All right, that is all for this quick lesson on dates. Next video we will start module 3, working on financial functions, accounting functions, and basically working with money. All right.